I always thought if my marriage ever fell apart, I'd see it coming, that there'd be clear signs, undeniable proof. Instead, I walked around like a blind fool while my wife and my best friend played me for a joke. Lisa and I had been married for 5 years, together for 8. She was the type of woman who made heads turn when she walked into a room, not just because she was beautiful, but because she carried herself like she owned the place. Confident, charismatic, the kind of woman who could make you feel lucky just by standing next to her. And for the longest time I was lucky, or at least I thought I was. Then, about a year ago, things started shifting. It wasn't overnight. More like a slow leak in a pipe that you don't notice until your ceiling caves in. She started dressing up more often, even on days when she claimed she was just working late. She'd leave the house in full makeup, a short dress, and heels, only to tell me she was headed to some boring corporate dinner. I wasn't stupid. I knew how Lisa dressed for work, and it wasn't like that. Her phone never left her side. She used to be the kind of person who'd let it die at 2% without caring. Now she kept it charged, face down, notifications silenced. If I so much as glanced in its direction, she'd act like I was invading her privacy. And intimacy, that became a joke. First, I thought it was just a rough patch. Maybe stress, maybe boredom. But then I started noticing something else. Jake, my best friend, was always around at the strangest times. Jake and I had been tight since college. The kind of friendship that survives bad breakups, career failures, and even a few fistfights. He had been my best man at our wedding. Lisa always liked him, but lately, it felt like she really liked him. He dropped by when I wasn't home, always with some excuse about needing to borrow something or check on Lisa while I was working late. He started making little comments, jokes that didn't feel like jokes. Things like, "Man, if I had a wife like yours, I'd never leave the house." The kind of thing I laughed off at the time because I was too stupid to read between the lines. But the moment I knew something was wrong came on a random Tuesday night. Lisa had been acting weird all day, extra distant, checking her phone constantly, barely speaking to me. Around 10 p.m., she suddenly got up from the couch and announced she was going to bed early. That was already odd, considering she was a night owl. I waited a few minutes before following her, but when I got upstairs, the bedroom door was locked. Lisa never locked doors in the house. Ever. I knocked. No answer. I stood there for a moment, debating what to do, before walking back downstairs. That's when I saw it. Her phone, sitting on the kitchen counter. She must have forgotten it in her rush to lock herself away. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I pressed the side button, and the screen lit up. A text popped up at the top. It was from Jake. That was close. "Can't wait to see you again." My stomach dropped. I opened her messages, my hands shaking so hard I could barely scroll. The thread with Jake was full of things I never should have seen. Flirty texts, suggestive comments, plans to meet up when I wasn't around. And then, the worst of it, a message from her just an hour ago. "He has no clue. I feel bad, but I can't stop." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My best friend. My wife. The two people I trusted the most, laughing behind my back. I should have stormed upstairs and confronted her right then. Should have thrown her out, called Jake, demanded answers. But I didn't, because in that moment, standing in the dim light of my kitchen, I realized something terrifying. If they had been bold enough to do this under my nose, how long had it really been going on? And what else were they hiding? I needed proof. Real proof. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I was going to catch them in the act. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Lisa breathing softly beside me like she hadn't just texted my best friend about sneaking around behind my back. My mind was running in 100 different directions. How long had this been going on? When did it start? Had I been an idiot this whole time? Or had they just gotten sloppy? I needed to know everything. The next morning, I acted like nothing was wrong. I kissed Lisa on the cheek before leaving for work, just like I always did. She smiled at me like she wasn't lying straight to my face. I wanted to ask her, "How do you do it? How do you look me in the eye and pretend you love me while you're running around with my best friend. But I swallowed it down. I had a plan now. First, I called in sick to work. Then, I went to an electronics store and bought a small hidden camera, something discreet with a wide-angle lens. By noon, I had installed it in the living room, tucked away between some books on the shelf. Lisa liked to lounge on the couch when she thought she was alone, and if she was dumb enough to bring Jake into my house, I'd have everything on video. But I didn't stop there. I pulled up our phone records. Lisa and I shared a plan, and while she had always been careful about deleting messages, she couldn't erase the call logs. My stomach churned as I scrolled through weeks of late-night calls. Dozens of them. Hours-long conversations with Jake, always on nights when I had gone to bed early, or when I'd been out with friends. Then I checked my security cameras. I had installed them a year ago after a string of car break-ins in our neighborhood. There was one at the front door, one at the back, and one covering the driveway. Lisa had never cared much about them, probably because she never thought she'd need to. I went through the last month of footage. First, nothing stood out. But then I saw it. 2 weeks ago, on a night when I had worked late, Jake's car pulled into my driveway. He didn't even park on the street or try to hide. Just strolled right up to my front door like he owned the place. The camera caught Lisa opening the door and pulling him inside before he could even knock. I felt sick. I checked another night. Same thing. And another. And another. It wasn't even just when I was at work. Sometimes it was on nights when I had gone to bed early. That meant he had been here while I was upstairs, asleep in my own bed, thinking my wife was downstairs watching TV or reading. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad. The heartbreak, the disbelief. It all burned away, leaving nothing but cold, steady anger. They thought they were smart. They thought I'd never find out. But they had underestimated me. I wasn't going to confront Lisa yet. I needed more. If I played this right, I could make sure she had no way to lie her way out of it. So I waited. The hidden camera was recording. The security footage was saving. I cleared my schedule for the next few days, making sure I'd be home more often than usual. If Lisa and Jake had gotten comfortable enough to use my house as their personal meeting spot, it was only a matter of time before they got careless again. And when they did, I'd be ready. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, I told Lisa I had to work late. I made a big deal about it. Sighing, complaining, even fake texting my boss in front of her just to sell the story. She barely looked up from her phone, just muttered some half-hearted, "That sucks, babe," and kept typing. That was all I needed. At 6 p.m., I left the house like usual, drove down the street, turned the corner, and parked in an empty lot where I had a clear view of my house. Then I sat and waited. It didn't even take an hour. At 7:12 p.m., Jake's car pulled into my driveway. No hesitation, no attempt to park down the street or sneak in. He walked right up to my front door, knocked once, and Lisa answered almost immediately, pulling him inside without even looking around, like she had done it 100 times before. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I had known what was coming, but seeing it happen in real time was different. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to know. I forced myself to wait. If I stormed in right then, I wouldn't have proof. I needed to let them get comfortable. Let them think they were safe. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. I checked my phone, pulling up the live feed from the hidden camera. My stomach turned when I saw them on the couch, her sitting close, legs draped over his lap, his hands on her thighs, laughing, whispering, acting like this was their home, not mine. I should have been furious. And I was. But under the rage, there was something else, something colder. Watching them, I realized how little I actually recognized the woman on that screen. This wasn't my Lisa. The Lisa I had loved. The Lisa I had trusted. She was long gone. What was left was just a liar wearing her face. That made what I had to do next a lot easier. At 8:45 p.m., I drove back home, parked in my usual spot, walked up to my own front door like nothing was wrong. And then I knocked. I could have just used my key. But I wanted to see their faces when they heard that knock, when reality crashed down on them. Through the door I heard hurried whispers, a rustle of movement, a door creaking open, Probably Lisa trying to shove Jake into another room. I smiled to myself. 10 seconds later, Lisa opened the door, face flushed, breath a little uneven. "Oh, hey," she said, like she was surprised to see me, like I wasn't the owner of this house. "I thought you were working late?" I stepped inside without answering. I didn't need to. The house reeked of cheap cologne and bad decisions. The TV was on, playing some random Netflix show at low volume like they had actually been watching it. Like this wasn't the biggest insult I had ever walked into. I set my keys on the table and turned to Lisa. She was nervous, trying to hide it, but I could see it in the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, in the way her fingers fidgeted against her thigh. Then I looked past her. Jake was standing near the hallway, trying way too hard to act casual. He had his hands shoved in his pockets, shoulders stiff. He didn't say a word. Didn't even try to crack one of his usual jokes. Good. That meant he knew. Lisa cleared her throat. Jake just stopped by. He needed to borrow something. I let the silence stretch. I wanted to see how far she'd take the lie. "Oh yeah," I finally said. "What did he need to borrow?" She blinked. "Huh." I gestured vaguely. "You said he stopped by to borrow something. What was it?" Lisa's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flickered toward Jake, but he didn't jump in to help her. He just stared at the floor, like maybe if he didn't move, I'd forget he was there. She licked her lips. A book." I almost laughed. A book. Jake hadn't read a book in years. I doubted he even owned one. But she had nothing else to say, because she hadn't expected to get caught. They had gotten so comfortable sneaking around that they never even considered the possibility that I knew. I could have ended it right there. Thrown them both out. Called them out for the disgusting liars they were. But I didn't, because I wasn't done yet. Lisa was still standing there, fidgeting, waiting for me to accept her ridiculous excuse and move on like an idiot. Jake hadn't said a single word, which was probably the smartest decision he had made all night. I could feel the tension in the room, thick and suffocating, but I forced myself to stay calm. If I played this right, I could make them both unravel. I nodded slowly. "A book, huh? Which one?" Lisa blinked, her mind scrambling for an answer. The one about finance stuff." I almost laughed in her face. "Finance stuff?" I repeated. "Yeah." She swallowed hard. "Investing." He wanted to get into investing. So I told him about that book you had. Jake was staring at the ground like a guilty kid caught stealing candy. I could practically hear his thoughts. "Don't make eye contact. Don't speak. Don't move." I tilted my head. "That's weird. Because I don't have any finance books." Silence. Lisa's face was turning red now, her brain desperately trying to come up with an escape route. But I wasn't letting her out of this. Not yet. I walked past her, straight toward the couch. The blanket was rumpled, one of the pillows on the floor. An empty wine glass sat on the table, only one. Lisa's. I picked it up, turned it in my hand. "So, Jake came over to borrow a book? But you decided to have a drink?" Lisa let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, I just poured that before you came in." "So you're telling me," I said, looking straight at her now, "that Jake came here for a book, and instead of just grabbing it and leaving, he stuck around while you poured yourself wine?" Lisa's eyes flickered toward Jake again, but he still hadn't said a word. He was sweating now. Time for the kill shot. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. "You know, babe," I said, my voice light, almost amused. "Since we're all here, why don't we watch something together?" Lisa furrowed her brows. "What?" I turned the phone toward them. The video was paused on a crystal-clear frame from my hidden camera. Lisa draped across the couch, her legs over Jake's lap, his hands gripping her thigh. Just before I had knocked on the door, Lisa's face drained of color. Jake's mouth finally opened slightly, but no words came out. I pressed play. The audio kicked in. Lisa giggling, Jake whispering something into her neck, the unmistakable sounds of two people who had done this 100 times before. It was disgusting. I watched them watch themselves. Lisa clapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. "Oh my God!" Jake finally broke his silence. Dude, I held up a hand. Shut up. My voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. He shut up. I turned my gaze back to Lisa, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Go on, I said. Tell me more about that finance book. She didn't answer. I shook my head, feeling a sick sort of satisfaction settle in my chest. You really thought I wouldn't find out, huh? Thought I'd just keep playing the dumb husband while you two laughed behind my back. Lisa opened her mouth again, but I wasn't interested in her excuses. I turned to Jake. And you? I said, my voice dropping. My best friend. My brother. You sat across from me for years, called me family, and the whole time, you were waiting for me to leave so you could sneak into my house. Jake swallowed hard. Man, save it. I took a step closer. Get out of my house. Now. Lisa gasped. Wait. I snapped my head toward her. You want to go with him? Be my guest. Jake hesitated, looking between us like he was waiting for Lisa to say something, to defend him. But she was too busy trying to figure out how to salvage this for herself. I wasn't giving her that chance. I turned back to Jake. I said get out. He did. Fast. Practically ran to the door. Lisa, though, she wasn't going anywhere. Not yet, because I had one more thing to take care of. The second Jake was out the door, Lisa turned on the waterworks. It was almost impressive how fast she shifted gears, like she had been practicing for this moment. Tears welled up in her eyes, her lip trembled, and she reached for me with shaking hands. Babe, please, she whispered. It's not what you think. I laughed, actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe she had the audacity to keep lying, even with the evidence still playing on my phone. Not what I think, I repeated, shaking my head. Lisa, I just watched a video of you draped all over my best friend. What exactly do you think I think? She sniffled, wiping her cheeks. I made a mistake, okay? A stupid, horrible mistake. But it didn't mean anything. It was just a stupid fling. A fling. Like that made it better. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my anger in check. I had spent days planning this, making sure I had every piece of evidence before I confronted her. Now that the moment was here, I wasn't about to let her spin this into a pity party for herself. How long? I asked. Lisa hesitated, biting her lip. I don't know. How long? She broke eye contact. A few months. I already knew from the phone records and security footage that this had been going on for nearly a year. She wasn't going to admit to that, though. She was only going to tell me as much as she thought I already knew. So, let me get this straight, I said. For months, you've been sneaking around with my best friend, lying to my face, making me feel like an idiot. And now that you're caught, you want me to just, what? Forgive you? Lisa grabbed my hands, squeezing them. I love you, she choked out. I swear, I love you. I was stupid, I was lonely, and he was there. I yanked my hands away. Lonely? I repeated. You were lonely? Lisa, I was right here. She shook her head frantically. I know, and I hate myself for it. But I swear, it didn't mean anything. It was just physical. That's it. I never stopped loving you. I felt a cold emptiness settle in my chest. If that's true, I said slowly, then why did you text him right before I walked in saying you can't stop? Her face twisted in horror. Why, you saw that? Yeah, I said. I saw everything. And that was when the tears stopped. Like flipping a switch, Lisa's entire demeanor changed. Her soft, trembling voice hardened. Her eyes narrowed, and her shoulders squared. The act was over. She scoffed, crossing her arms. So what now? She said, voice dripping with venom. You gonna throw away our whole marriage over one mistake? I stared at her, dumbfounded. One mistake, I repeated. Lisa, this wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is accidentally sending a text to the wrong person. This was a choice you made over and over. She rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. Are you really going to act like some saint? Like you've never done anything wrong in this relationship. My jaw tightened. What the hell are you talking about? She shrugged. I don't know. I just find it funny that you suddenly care so much about loyalty when you've barely even been around lately. Always working, always distracted. Unbelievable. I let out a dry laugh. So now it's my fault? I'm just saying, she said. Maybe if you'd paid a little more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to go somewhere else. And there it was. The moment she realized she couldn't manipulate me with tears, she went for the blame game. Classic. I had seen enough movies to know how cheaters operated, but seeing it in real life was something else. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even ashamed. She was just angry that she got caught. I stared at her for a long moment, taking in the woman standing in front of me. The same woman I had once planned my whole future around. The same woman who, up until a few days ago, I would have done anything for. And now I couldn't even recognize her. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Lisa, I said, my voice eerily calm. Pack your things. She blinked. What? You heard me? I said, stepping back. Get your stuff and get out. Her mouth fell open. Are you serious? Dead serious. She let out a bitter laugh. You can't just kick me out of our house. I smiled, but there was no warmth behind it. Actually, I can. Then, I walked over to the coffee table, picked up a folder, and tossed it onto the couch in front of her. She frowned, hesitating before opening it. And then her face went pale. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed, dated, ready to go. Lisa's head snapped up. You! I was ready the second I saw that first message. I cut in. I just wanted to see how deep this went. And now that I know, I gestured toward the door. You can leave. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't, because she knew. She had already lost. Lisa didn't move at first. She just stood there, clutching the divorce papers like they were some kind of puzzle she couldn't solve. Like she couldn't believe I had beaten her to the punch. I waited, watched. I wanted to see what she would do now that the game was over. And just like I expected, she tried one last move. Her face hardened, her lips curling into something bitter. You really think you're so smart, don't you? She spat, catching me, setting me up like some kind of detective. Was that fun for you? I let out a slow breath. You're unbelievable. No, you're unbelievable. She shot back. I made one mistake. I laughed. Actually laughed. Lisa, stop saying one mistake like you tripped and fell into my best friend's lap. Her jaw clenched. Fine, she snapped. You want the truth? Yeah, I cheated. Yeah, I lied. But you were never there. You worked late, you barely looked at me anymore. What was I supposed to do? Oh, I don't know, I said. Maybe talk to me instead of screwing around with the one person I trusted most? She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Like you would have cared. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. Lisa, I loved you. I would have done anything for you. And you threw it away for a guy who doesn't even respect you enough to fight for you. That hit something. I saw it in the flicker of doubt behind her eyes. Because Jake hadn't fought for her. He had bolted the second he was caught, hadn't even tried to defend her. Lisa had risked our entire marriage for him. And in the end, he left her standing there alone. But I wasn't done. I grabbed my phone off the table, pulled up our security camera app, and turned the screen toward her. By the way, I said, this whole conversation? Recorded. Lisa's breath hitched. You? Yep, I said. Every excuse, every lie, every insult. You know, just in case you get any cute ideas about making this divorce messy. Her mouth opened, then closed. Because what could she even say? She was cornered. Every escape route was blocked. I grabbed the folder off the couch, pulled out the top sheet, and handed it to her. Sign it, I said. Lisa hesitated. Then she yanked the pen from my hand, scrawled her name at the bottom, and slammed it back down. Good, I said. I grabbed my phone again and started dialing. Lisa frowned. Who are you calling? An Uber, I said. Unless you'd rather call Jake to come pick you up. Her face twisted in fury, but she didn't say anything, because she knew there was nothing left to say. She grabbed her bag, yanked the front door open, and stepped outside without another word. I didn't follow. I didn't watch her leave. I just stood there, listening as the sound of her footsteps faded into the night. And then, for the first time in a long time, I let out a breath that didn't feel like poison in my lungs. The second the door slammed shut, the house felt different. Quieter, lighter, like the air had finally cleared after a long, choking storm. I stood there for a moment, just breathing, taking in the silence. No more fake smiles. No more secret phone calls. No more sitting next to someone who had been lying to my face every single day. It was over. I should have felt relief. And in a way, I did. But beneath it, there was something else, something heavier. Anger. Not the kind that explodes in the moment, but the kind that sits deep in your chest, burning slow. Because no matter how this ended, the damage was already done. Lisa had taken everything good in our marriage and set it on fire. She had betrayed me in my own home. She had made a fool out of me, and the worst part? She had done it with him. Jake. That thought alone sent a fresh wave of rage through me. Lisa was gone, but he was still out there. Probably thinking he got off easy, that he could just disappear and let me deal with the fallout alone. No, I wasn't done yet. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. Jake's apartment was across town, a small place he had moved into after his last breakup. I had helped him move in, spent an entire weekend lifting boxes, setting up furniture, cracking open beers on his new couch. And the whole time I had called him my brother. Now, I was going to make sure he understood exactly what that meant to me. By the time I pulled into his parking lot, my blood was boiling. I stepped out of the car, slammed the door shut, and walked straight to his building. I didn't text, didn't call. I wasn't giving him a heads up. I reached his door and knocked. Hard. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Coward. I wasn't leaving without a face-to-face, so I leaned against the doorframe, pulled out my phone, and hit dial. It rang. Once. Twice. Then, hey man. His voice was cautious, like he already knew why I was calling. Open your door, I said. Pause. I don't think that's a good idea. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh, now you're worried about good ideas? Should have thought about that before sneaking around with my wife. Look, I don't want any trouble, he stammered. I know I messed up, but open the door. Silence. Then finally I heard the lock click. The door creaked open a few inches, just enough for me to see his guilty, pathetic face. Jake looked like hell. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair a mess, like he had spent the last hour pacing. Maybe he had. Maybe he thought I'd let this go. He was wrong. I pushed the door open the rest of the way and stepped inside. Jake backed up, hands raised. Look, man. I don't know what you want me to say. I shut the door behind me. I don't want you to say anything, Jake. I want you to understand something. He swallowed hard. Okay. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You didn't just sleep with some random woman. You didn't just make a mistake. You betrayed me. The one person who would have done anything for you. Jake flinched but didn't speak. I shook my head. And for what? Lisa? A woman who threw away an 8-year relationship like it was nothing? You really think you're special? That she loved you? Jake's eyes darted away. He knew the truth, but he didn't want to admit it. I laughed coldly. You were just convenient, man. She didn't love me, but she sure as hell didn't love you either. You were just easy access. His jaw tightened, but he still didn't argue. Because he knew. I let the silence stretch, watching the guilt and shame twist in his face. Then finally I spoke again. I never want to see you again. My voice was steady, calm. You're dead to me. Jake swallowed hard. I didn't let him finish. I turned, walked out the door, and slammed it shut behind me. And just like that, I erased him from my life. Walking out of Jake's apartment should have felt like closure, like I had finally shut the door on this whole mess. But as I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel, I realized something. I wasn't satisfied. Jake got off easy. Lisa got off easy. They had both shredded my life into pieces, and the only consequence was a little guilt and an awkward goodbye. No, that wasn't enough. They didn't get to just move on like nothing happened. I wanted them to feel it. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. The divorce papers were signed, but Lisa was still legally tied to me for now. That meant I still had time to make this as painful as possible for her. And Jake? I knew exactly where to hit him where it hurt. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Ava, Jake's ex. The one who had left him after she caught him flirting with other women behind her back. The one he begged to take him back for months. I hit dial. She picked up after 2 rings. Hello, Ava, I said smoothly. It's me. She hesitated. Hey, what's up? I leaned back in my seat, staring at the dimly lit parking lot. You still hate Jake? A dry laugh. What kind of question is that? I smiled. How would you like to know something that would make you hate him even more? A pause. Then, I'm listening. I didn't hold back. I laid it all out. How Jake had been sneaking around with Lisa behind my back for months. How he had been slithering into my house like a rat the moment I left. How he had acted like my best friend while screwing my wife the entire time. Ava didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was silence. Then she let out a long, satisfied sigh. That piece of trash. I could hear the gears turning in her head. Ava wasn't the type to let a grudge go. And if there was one thing I knew for certain, it was that she still had plenty of dirt on Jake. Things he really wouldn't want getting out. I'll take care of it, she said. I grinned. I thought you might. And just like that, Jake's life was about to get a lot worse. 1 down. 1 to go. Now Lisa. She had signed the divorce papers, but I wasn't going to let her walk away thinking she had one somehow. She needed to learn that betraying me came with consequences. So I got back on my phone and opened our joint bank account. Lisa had always been careless with money. Never checked the statements, never cared about where the money was going, as long as she had enough for her shopping sprees and overpriced cocktails. That was her mistake. Because while she had been sneaking around with Jake, I had been making preparations of my own. Months ago, when I first started suspecting something, I began slowly moving my money into a separate account. Little by little, just enough to keep her from noticing. And now, there was barely anything left for her. I clicked a few buttons, transferred the last remaining dollars out. Then I closed the joint account entirely. Lisa was about to wake up tomorrow with nothing. I leaned back in my seat and exhaled slowly. The anger that had been boiling inside me for days started to settle. I wasn't done yet, not completely, but I was getting there. They thought they had played me, thought they had gotten away with it. But now they were about to find out exactly what happens when you betray someone who trusted you. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. Not happy. There was no happiness in any of this. But there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that Lisa and Jake's lives were about to collapse. And I didn't have to wait long to see the fallout. At exactly 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Lisa. I let it ring. Watched as her name flashed across the screen, as if she actually thought I'd pick up. The call ended. Then another one. Then another. By the 5th call, she gave up on playing nice and switched to texts. Lisa. What did you do? Lisa. Where is the money? Lisa. Answer me, you selfish jerk. I need that account. I smirked. There it was. That desperation. That panic. Lisa had never been good with money. She had gotten used to a lifestyle that I had funded. Shopping sprees, overpriced brunches, useless subscriptions. She never checked our finances because she never had to. But now she was waking up to reality. I didn't respond. Instead, I got dressed, made myself breakfast, and took my time starting my day. It wasn't until an hour later that I finally sent her a single reply. Me, not my problem. Instantly, 3 dots appeared, like she was typing out a novel. I didn't bother waiting. I put my phone on silent and walked out the door. Lisa could scream into the void all she wanted. I wasn't listening anymore, but I wasn't done with Jake. I needed to see what Ava had done with the information I gave her. So I checked my social media. And that's when I saw it. Post. Ava had gone nuclear. She had posted a long, brutal takedown of Jake, complete with screenshots of old messages, proof of him cheating on her during their relationship, and the cherry on top, my video. The same footage I had shown Lisa and Jake in my living room. The moment I caught them in the act, the way they looked when they realized they were trapped. And the comments? Oh, they were brutal. Jake's so-called friends were ripping into him. Mutual acquaintances were disgusted. People he had been trying to impress for years were watching him get dragged in real time. His reputation? Destroyed. I leaned back in my chair, watching the chaos unfold. And then, right on cue, another text. Jake. Dude. What the hell is wrong with you? Jake. You sent my crazy ex after me? Jake. I lost my job because of this. Oh, that was interesting. I clicked his profile. Sure enough, the company he had been working for, the one he had bragged about finally landing a stable position in, had removed him from their employee list. Ava must have sent the post directly to his boss. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. Jake had spent months sneaking behind my back, thinking he was untouchable. But now, he was jobless, humiliated, and publicly roasted for everyone to see. And just like with Lisa, I sent him only one response. Me, not my problem. I shut my phone off after that. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to check for updates. I had already won. Winning felt good. But I wasn't done yet. Lisa and Jake had both taken massive hits. Lisa was broke, Jake was publicly ruined. But there was still one last thing I needed to do. Something that would make sure neither of them could crawl back from this. I had one more ace up my sleeve. Lisa had a job, sure, but what she didn't have was the ability to keep it without a spotless reputation. She worked in a high-end marketing firm, one of those places where image was everything. They handled wealthy clients, high-profile brands. The kind of people who didn't want their names associated with messy scandals. And lucky for me, I had plenty of material to make her look very messy. I spent the morning compiling everything, the screenshots, the video, the texts. I made sure to include the timestamps, proving that Lisa had been bringing her affair partner into our home while she was supposed to be working late. Then, I sent it directly to her company's HR department. Not anonymously. With my name, my contact information, and a very professional email explaining that I was finalizing a divorce due to her infidelity and that I believed her behavior could reflect poorly on their firm's reputation. I didn't have to wait long for the results. At 2 p.m., Lisa called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then again. Then the text started. Lisa, you just cost me my job. Lisa, are you insane? Lisa, do you know what you've done? I smirked and took a sip of my coffee. Oh, I knew exactly what I had done. She was unemployed now. The woman who had always bragged about being independent suddenly had nothing. No husband, no money, no backup plan. She had spent years treating me like a safety net, someone who would always be there to catch her no matter what she did. But I had cut the net, and she was free-falling. A few hours later, I got another call, this time from a mutual friend, Mark, one of the few people who had actually been a friend to me through all of this. I picked up. Dude, he said, barely holding back laughter. Lisa is losing her mind. Oh, I said, feigning innocence. Whatever for? She just called me, screaming about how you ruined her life. She's saying she has no money, no job, and nowhere to go. Sounds like a her problem. Mark chuckled. Yeah, that's pretty much what I told her. But here's the best part. She tried to call Jake for help. I raised an eyebrow. And he blocked her. I laughed out loud. You're kidding. Nope, Mark said. Dude bailed the second she became a liability. Guess it turns out she wasn't worth losing his entire life over. That was perfect. Lisa had thrown away everything for Jake. Risked our marriage, humiliated me, destroyed my trust. And in the end, he abandoned her the moment things got hard. She had no money, no home, no job. And the guy she risked it all for didn't even want her anymore. I sat back in my chair, letting the satisfaction wash over me. Lisa had played a stupid game, and she had finally won her stupid prize. Lisa was officially at rock bottom. No job, no money, no home, no Jake. I had taken everything from her. And yet, she still wasn't done trying to weasel her way out of it. The next morning, I woke up to a series of messages from an unknown number. Lisa must have realized I had blocked her and was now trying to reach me from someone else's phone. Unknown number. Please just talk to me. Unknown number. I know you're mad, but we can fix this. Unknown number. Don't you remember how good we were together? I stared at my phone, amazed. This was delusion at its finest. Lisa wasn't just trying to apologize. She was actually trying to manipulate me into taking her back. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another text came in. Unknown number. I have nowhere to go. There it was. She didn't miss me. She missed her old life. She missed the security, the money, the comfort of knowing that no matter how badly she screwed up, I'd always be there to pick up the pieces. But those days were over. Still, I was curious to see how far she'd go. So I texted back. Me, not my problem. The response came instantly. Unknown number. Are you serious? After everything we've been through, you're just going to let me suffer? I shook my head. The nerve of this woman. Me, you made your bed. Now lie in it. Silence. Then, unknown number, you're a monster. I actually laughed. I was a monster? Me? The husband she betrayed? The friend Jake stabbed in the back? The guy who had spent months questioning his own sanity while they snuck around behind my back? I wasn't the monster in this story. I was the ending to hers. I put my phone down and went about my day. Lisa's problems weren't mine anymore. And then, later that afternoon, I got a text from Mark. Mark, dude, you're not gonna believe this. Me, what now? Mark. Lisa just tried to move in with Jake. I froze. Then another text came in. Mark. And he shut the door in her face. I burst out laughing. Lisa had been so sure Jake would save her. That even if I turned my back on her, he would be there, arms open, ready to play the role of her new provider. But she had forgotten one crucial thing. Jake never wanted responsibility. He didn't want a relationship. He wanted the thrill, the excitement of sneaking around, of having something that wasn't his. Now that Lisa was his problem, she wasn't exciting anymore. And just like that, she was truly alone. I couldn't have scripted a better ending myself. Lisa had officially run out of options. She had no job, no savings, no husband, and now, not even her precious Jake to fall back on. She had burned every bridge, and for the first time in her life, no one was there to clean up the mess she made. But did that stop her from trying? Of course not. 2 days after she tried to move in with Jake, I got a call from an old contact, her sister, Claire. Claire and Lisa had never been particularly close. Claire was the responsible one, the planner, the person who had her life together while Lisa floated through life on looks and charm. They barely spoke unless Lisa needed something, and I had a feeling that's exactly what had happened now. I picked up. Hey, Claire said, a little hesitant. Look, I know we haven't talked much since everything, but I need to ask you something. I leaned back in my chair. Let me guess. Lisa showed up at your door with some sob story. Claire sighed. Yeah. She said she had nowhere else to go. That you threw her out with nothing. Ruined her job. Took all the money. I snorted. Did she mention why? Not exactly, Claire admitted. Just that you were holding a grudge and punishing her. I let out a dry laugh. Classic Lisa. Even with everything crashing down around her, she still couldn't take responsibility. Still had to spin the story to make herself the victim. Claire hesitated before speaking again. Look, I don't want to pry, but I need to know the truth before I even consider letting her stay with me. What really happened? I didn't sugarcoat it. I laid out everything. Lisa's affair, the months of sneaking around, how she had humiliated me with my own best friend. I told Claire about the texts, the security footage, the proof I had. By the time I finished, Claire was silent. Then she let out a long breath. Wow, she muttered. I knew she was selfish, but I didn't think she was that bad. She is, I said simply. Claire was quiet for a moment. Then, well, that settles it, she said. I'm not letting her stay here. I raised an eyebrow. That easy? Claire scoffed. I'm not an idiot. If she was willing to do that to you, she'd do the same to me the second I became inconvenient. I'm not putting a roof over her head just so she can sit around feeling sorry for herself. I grinned. You might be the smartest person in your family. Claire laughed. Trust me, I know. We talked a little longer, mostly about how Lisa had always been like this. Selfish, reckless, thinking she could manipulate her way out of anything. Claire had spent years dealing with her nonsense, and now she was finally done too. Lisa wasn't just losing me. She was losing her family too. When we hung up, I sat there for a while, letting it sink in. Lisa had nothing left. And the best part? I never had to lift a finger to make it happen. She had done it all to herself. Lisa was completely and utterly alone. No job, no money, no friends, no family. She had spent years using people, thinking she could manipulate her way out of anything. But now she had finally hit a wall. No more safety nets. No more backups. Just the consequences of her own actions staring her in the face. And I thought that would be the end of it. But Lisa wasn't the type to go down quietly. 3 days after my conversation with Claire, I came home from work to find someone sitting on my front porch. Lisa. She looked nothing like the woman I had been married to. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup smudged like she had been crying. She wasn't wearing her usual polished, put-together outfits, just an oversized hoodie and leggings. She looked small, desperate, but I felt nothing. She noticed me walking up and stood quickly. Hey, she said, forcing a weak smile. Can we talk? I didn't answer, just pulled out my keys, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. She followed me in like she still had a right to be there. I sighed, shutting the door behind her. Lisa, what are you doing here? She bit her lip, eyes flickering around the house like she was expecting things to be different. Like she thought I had spent the last 2 weeks sitting in misery, waiting for her to come crawling back. She finally looked at me. I need a place to stay, just for a little while, just until I get back on my feet. I stared at her, waiting for the real reason. And there it was. She didn't miss me. She didn't regret what she did. She just wanted a roof over her head. I crossed my arms. Not my problem. She flinched. Come on, don't be like that. You know I have nowhere else to go. That's not my fault. Lisa let out a frustrated breath. God. Do you enjoy seeing me suffer? I tilted my head. You think this is about revenge? She scoffed. Of course it is. You destroyed my life. You made me lose my job. You turned my own sister against me. I laughed. You did all of that yourself, Lisa. You cheated. You lied. You threw everything away. She looked away, jaw tight. I shook my head. And now that you've finally hit rock bottom, you expect me to bail you out? Lisa's hands clenched into fists. You're seriously just going to let me be homeless? I shrugged. That's not my problem. Her face twisted in anger. I was your wife. No, I said coldly. You were my biggest mistake. That was it. That was the breaking point. Her entire body tensed, her face turning red with fury. You are such a heartless piece of trash, she screamed. You act like you're so much better than me, but you're just as cruel. I didn't flinch. I didn't react at all. I just stepped forward, opened the door, and gestured outside. Leave. She stood there for a moment, breathing hard, eyes wild with frustration. But she knew. She had lost. Lisa stormed past me, shoving her way out the door. She didn't look back. I shut the door behind her, locked it, and exhaled. And just like that, the last piece of her was gone. The second the door shut behind Lisa, I stood there for a moment, just listening. No yelling, no pounding on the door, no last-ditch attempt to guilt me into changing my mind. Just silence. She was finally gone. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back slightly. Lisa was still on the porch, pacing in circles, her hands shaking as she furiously typed on her phone, probably texting someone. Maybe Claire, maybe Jake, maybe whatever unlucky friend she hadn't burned yet. But after a few minutes, she stopped. Then, without even glancing back at the house, she walked down the steps, down the driveway, and disappeared into the night. I exhaled. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I turned away from the window, taking in my home. My home. Not ours. Not anymore. It was like I was looking at it with fresh eyes. The living room didn't feel tainted. The couch didn't remind me of her anymore. The kitchen didn't feel like a place where whispered phone calls had taken place while I slept upstairs. The ghost of her presence was finally fading. I made my way upstairs and stepped into the bedroom. The bed was neatly made, the nightstand clear. No more of Lisa's clutter. No more perfume bottles. No more lipstick-stained coffee mugs sitting on the dresser. Just mine. And that's when it really hit me. It was over. Not just the marriage. Not just the anger. Everything. No more lies. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering if I was imagining things or if she was actually betraying me. No more waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like something was off but not being able to prove it. I had survived the worst of it. I had won. But winning didn't feel like I thought it would. I had spent so much time planning my revenge, making sure Lisa and Jake paid for what they did, that I hadn't really thought about what came next. I had been fueled by rage, by betrayal, by the need to make them suffer the way they made me suffer. And now that it was all done, now that Lisa had nothing, now that Jake's life was in ruins, there was nothing left to focus on. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure what that meant. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my face with my hands. I should have felt lighter. I should have felt free. But all I felt was empty, because now I had to start over. From scratch. No wife. No best friend. Just me, sitting in a house that felt too big for one person, wondering where the hell I was supposed to go from here. The next morning, I woke up feeling something strange. Relief. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up dreading what kind of lie I'd have to swallow that day. There was no pit in my stomach, no gnawing feeling that something was wrong. Just quiet. Just peace. I got up, stretched, and walked to the bathroom. Looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the guy staring back at me. Not because I had changed physically, but because for the first time in a long time I wasn't looking at someone being played for a fool. I wasn't looking at a man trapped in a broken marriage, desperately clinging to something that had already fallen apart. I was looking at me, and that was the moment I knew I had finally won. Not because Lisa was gone. Not because Jake had lost everything. Not because I had destroyed their lives. I had won because I was free. I walked downstairs, made myself coffee, and sat on the couch. The same couch Lisa had curled up on while she whispered to Jake at night, thinking I'd never catch her. The same couch where I had spent hours questioning if I was just being paranoid. And now it was just a couch. I sipped my coffee, letting the silence sink in. It didn't feel lonely. Felt good. Like a fresh start. Like I was finally breathing air that hadn't been tainted by lies and betrayal. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my notifications. Lisa hadn't tried contacting me again. Jake hadn't either. They were both out of my life exactly where they belonged. I checked social media just out of curiosity. Lisa's profiles were gone. Deleted. Jake's? Oh, his was still there. And the comment section under his latest post? A complete disaster. People were still dragging him for what he did, mutual friends had cut ties, and even some of his family members had called him out. I smirked. That was his problem now. As I scrolled, a message popped up from Mark. Mark. Dude. You alive? Haven't heard from you in a couple days. I smirked and typed back. Me very much alive. Feels good, actually. Mark, good. You deserve that. Let's grab a drink soon. I stared at the message for a second. For so long, my world had revolved around Lisa and the mess she had made. Now I could actually live again. I typed back. Me, yeah, let's do that. I put my phone down, leaned back, and exhaled. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. I was looking forward.